He was the billionaire who locked his heart away after tragedy stole the woman he loved. She was the struggling planner who swore she'd never trust a man who could crush her world. When a storm trapped them together, secrets spilled, walls crumbled, and two broken souls found comfort in each other's pain. But can they overcome the lies, the fears, and the pasts that threaten to tear them apart before they discover a love worth fighting for? Stay with us for a story of heartbreak, healing, and the power of second chances. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss more unforgettable stories of love, hope, and second chances right here on Hearts and Billions. Ethan Hart stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, staring out at the city lights that glittered far below. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his prime, sharp suit, perfect hair, eyes as cold as the winter night. To the world, he was the powerful billionaire hotel owner who always got what he wanted. But inside, Ethan was empty. Ever since the accident 5 years ago that took his fiancée, he had closed himself off from love and from life. He spent his days making deals, expanding his empire and burying himself in work. His nights were silent, spent alone in a penthouse so big it echoed with loneliness. Staff hurried to obey him, afraid of his short temper and icy stare. Rumors called him the Ice King of Manhattan, but no one knew the truth. Behind the cold mask was a man haunted by guilt and pain. He blamed himself for his fiancée's death, convinced he didn't deserve happiness. His heart was locked away, and he had sworn never to open it again. That night, as snow fell outside his window, Ethan received a call from his assistant. The charity gala his company hosted every year was in danger of falling apart. His regular planner had quit at the last minute. They needed someone new, fast. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. Another problem to fix, another chance to remind everyone who was in control. But he had no idea that the woman they would hire next would change his life forever. Ava Brooks rushed through the crowded New York streets, icy wind biting at her cheeks. She checked her phone for the 100th time, praying for a job offer. Her father's hospital bills were months overdue, and her savings were almost gone. At 27, Ava was strong and determined, but life kept knocking her down. She worked 2 jobs, one planning small weddings, another waiting tables late into the night. Every dollar went to keeping her father alive, but it never felt like enough. That morning, Ava received a call that felt like a miracle. A high-end events company had a last-minute opening to plan a prestigious charity gala. If she impressed them, it could pay her father's medical bills and change everything. She arrived at the sleek glass office building, heart pounding in the boardroom. Polished executives looked her up and down skeptically. She wore a simple coat over her second-hand dress, trying to hide the scuffs on her shoes. "You'd be planning for Ethan Hart," one woman said sharply, sliding a folder across the table. "He has high expectations. Most people don't last a week." Ava opened the folder, scanning the details. $1 million gala, powerful guests, and a strict timeline. She swallowed hard. This was her chance, but also a risk she couldn't afford to fail. She looked up, eyes shining with quiet determination. "I can handle it," she said firmly. As Ava walked out of the office, snow beginning to fall around her, she felt a mix of fear and hope. She had no idea the man behind this gala would be the hardest and most important challenge of her life. Ava arrived at Ethan's headquarters the next morning. Clutching her notebook like a lifeline, she took the elevator up to the top floor, nerves buzzing. When the doors opened, she stepped into his sleek, silent office and met the cold blue eyes of Ethan Hart for the first time. He looked exactly like the headline said, tall, powerful, and impossibly calm. But Ava refused to let his icy stare intimidate her. She introduced herself confidently and presented her plan for the gala. Ethan interrupted with sharp questions, his voice low and controlled. He criticized every detail, the menu, the lighting, the guest list. Ava answered each challenge with steady resolve, refusing to back down even when his tone turned cutting. "You think you can pull this off in 3 weeks?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "Yes," Ava replied firmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I don't fail." Something in her fearless answer sparked a flicker of interest in Ethan, but he quickly shut it down. He dismissed her with a curt nod, though his mind kept replaying the fire he'd seen in her eyes. Days later, as the gala planning continued, a brutal snowstorm hit New York. Roads closed, and guests staying at Ethan's mountain resort became stranded. He decided to check on them himself, and insisted Ava come along to finalize last-minute details. As the storm worsened, they found themselves trapped overnight in the resort's grand lobby. Power flickered, the wind howled outside, and there was no way back to the city. For the first time, they were alone, two strangers with secrets, forced to share the same dark, stormy night, and as the hours passed, they began to see glimpses of the real person, hidden behind each other's carefully built walls. The wind howled outside the resort, rattling the windows. Inside, the grand lobby felt like a world apart, quiet except for the crackling fireplace. Ava sat curled up on a couch, hugging her knees, trying to stay warm. Ethan stood across the room, staring into the flames. His usual perfect composure was gone. His face looked tired, almost haunted. Ava couldn't help herself. She got up, walked over, and handed him a cup of hot cocoa the staff had left behind. "You look like you need this more than I do," she said softly. He hesitated, then took the cup, his hand brushing against hers. The brief contact sent a shiver through them both. As the hours passed, they talked first about the gala, then about their lives. Ava shared stories of her father, of working 2 jobs, of nights crying in hospital waiting rooms. Her voice wavered but didn't break. Ethan listened quietly, his expression softening. When she finished, he surprised her by opening up. Too, he told her about his fiancée, how she died in an accident on a snowy night not unlike this one. He admitted he blamed himself every day. "I thought if I never loved again, I'd never feel that kind of pain again," he confessed, eyes glinting with tears he quickly wiped away. Ava reached out, resting her hand on his. The simple touch felt like a lifeline, a silent promise that he wasn't alone anymore. That night, as snow piled high around the resort and the storm raged on, something shifted between them. Their guarded hearts cracked open just enough to let the first fragile light of hope shine through. When the storm finally cleared the next morning, the world outside was a sparkling blanket of snow. Ava and Ethan stood side by side on the resort balcony, breathing in the crisp air, both changed by the night they'd shared. Back in New York, something felt different. Ethan started finding excuses to see Ava outside of work. He'd show up unexpectedly at her father's hospital room with fresh flowers, or ask her to join him for lunch, surprising both of them with his quiet acts of kindness. One evening, Ava invited Ethan to visit her father, who had always been a proud man until illness stole his strength. Seeing Ethan's warmth as he shook her father's frail hand filled her with gratitude, and something she was afraid to name: hope. "Your daughter speaks so highly of you," Ethan told her father softly, his eyes meeting Ava's with unspoken emotion. Ava saw glimpses of a man she never thought Ethan could be, someone who could love deeply, who wasn't just a cold billionaire hiding behind boardroom walls. Their time together grew into something gentle and real. They shared quiet walks through Central Park, lingering conversations late into the night, and laughter Ava hadn't heard from herself in years. But every joyful moment was shadowed by unspoken fears. Ava worried she was falling for a man who would never be able to fully open his heart. Ethan feared that loving Ava meant risking the pain he'd sworn to never feel again. Yet with each day, their hearts warmed, 2 broken souls daring to imagine that maybe, together, they could heal. Just as Ethan and Ava's connection began to blossom, their fragile peace shattered. One morning, Ava woke to dozens of missed calls and a flood of angry messages. A tabloid had published photos of her and Ethan together, twisted into a cruel story. Billionaire's gold-digging planner caught seducing her boss. At the office, everyone stared as she walked past. Whispers followed her like a shadow. By the time she reached Ethan's office, he was waiting with the newspaper spread across his desk, his face hard and cold. "Is this what you wanted?" he demanded, voice low and dangerous. "Was I just another rich man for you to use?" His words cut deeper than any knife. Ava's eyes filled with tears as she tried to explain. "I didn't leak those photos, Ethan. I would never." But he interrupted, slamming his hand on the desk. "Everyone warned me. I should have listened." Ava's heart broke as he threw her out of his office. She packed her things with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. The warmth they had shared just days before felt like a cruel dream. As she left the building, reporters swarmed, shouting cruel questions. She ran through the icy streets, each breath burning with grief. She had lost everything: her job, her chance to save her father, and the man she'd begun to love. Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone in his office, staring at the door she'd walked through for the last time. His anger hid the truth he wouldn't admit to himself. That pushing her away felt worse than the pain he'd been running from all these years. Days passed in a painful blur. Ava returned to her small apartment, drowning in hopelessness. Her father's health declined without her income, and every time she tried to call Ethan, he didn't pick up. But Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his dark penthouse, replaying every moment with Ava. Her laughter, her kindness, the way she looked at him without fear. The more he thought about it, the more he realized he had made a terrible mistake. His heart ached with regret. He knew the rumors weren't true. He had seen Ava's honesty in her eyes every day they spent together. His fear of being hurt had blinded him again. One night, Ethan couldn't stand it any longer. He stormed out into the snowy streets, determined to find her. He arrived at Ava's apartment, pounding on her door. When she opened it, her face was pale and tear-streaked. "Ethan," she whispered, voice breaking. He fell to his knees in the hallway, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "I was wrong," he choked out. "I pushed you away because I was scared, but losing you is worse than any pain I've ever felt." Ava stared at him, her own tears falling faster. "I thought you hated me," she sobbed. "No," he said desperately. "I love you. I've loved you since the night we spent trapped in that storm. Please, don't leave me." Ava sank down beside him, and they held each other tightly, crying together as the snow fell quietly outside. For the first time, Ethan let himself feel every ounce of love he'd tried so hard to bury, and Ava realized he was worth the risk of her own heart. After their tearful reunion, Ethan refused to let Ava go again. He brought her father to the best hospital in the city, personally overseeing his treatment for the first time in years. Ava felt hope lightening the heavy weight in her chest. Ethan publicly defended Ava, holding a press conference where he declared the rumors false and admitted his own mistakes. Reporters gasped as the once cold, untouchable billionaire spoke with raw honesty, his voice thick with emotion as he praised Ava's courage and kindness. "She is not a liar," he told the world, eyes shining. "She saved me from the darkness I was trapped in." Ava stood by his side, overwhelmed but grateful. Their hands clasped tightly, they faced the cameras together, partners in every sense. Days later, Ethan surprised Ava with a candlelit dinner on the rooftop of his Manhattan hotel. Roses surrounded them, city lights sparkling like stars below. He took her hands, eyes soft and vulnerable. "I once promised myself I'd never love again," he whispered, "but you showed me that love isn't weakness, it's life. Ava, will you stay by my side? Not as my planner, but as my heart." Tears streamed down Ava's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, I've been yours from the start." They kissed under the night sky, their hearts finally free. From that moment on, they faced life together, not as two broken people, but as two souls who had found healing and love in each other. Together, they proved that even the deepest wounds could become the foundation for the strongest love. The seasons turned, and the cold, silent penthouse that once echoed with loneliness grew warm with laughter and love. Ethan and Ava filled every room with light, from quiet breakfasts in the sunlit kitchen to evenings spent reading by the fire, hands entwined. Ava's father recovered enough to walk her down the aisle when she married Ethan in a small, heartfelt ceremony under the blooming cherry trees of Central Park. Tears streamed down both their faces as they exchanged vows, promising to stand by each other no matter what storms might come. Ethan never stopped cherishing Ava, surprising her with small acts of kindness that reminded her how much he had changed. She, in turn, helped him heal from his guilt, teaching him that love could be stronger than pain. Together, they traveled to the snowy mountain resort where their journey began, standing hand in hand as the sun rose over the peaks. Ethan kissed Ava softly, whispering, "Thank you for saving me." Ava smiled through happy tears. "You saved me too." And as they watched the morning light break through the clouds, they knew they were exactly where they were meant to be, proving that love doesn't just heal wounds. It builds a new life worth living. If this story moved your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss more unforgettable stories of love, hope, and second chances right here on Hearts and Billions. And share your thoughts below. Do you believe love can truly heal even the deepest wounds?